If you guys are trying to take your training to the next level and you want to increase your speed, your power, your conditioning, then you got to check out Phil Daru's 8-week heavy hitter boxing program. I'm telling you guys right now, there's no joke.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, this is Genesis, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
We are yet to see it tonight successfully.
You take that away, he's ordinary. And that's exactly what this young man is doing. He's taking that angle away from Lomachenko.
I never show my 100% my skill because always it was some little problem. A fight with Linares, I had a problem with my shoulder. If we remember Pedraza, it was my first fight after surgery. And Grola, I broke my hand, but I finished this fight. Some guys finished and said no mas. Now I'm healthy. I'm ready mentally for this fight.
Now I'm healthy. I'm ready mentally for this fight.
And I want to win. It will be best fight in my pro career. I will put all my skill on the table.
What do I always tell you guys? The most dangerous weapon in the world is a microphone and a camera. Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So to get you guys caught up, let me just put this in chronological order. So we all know Lomachenko, he lost to Teofimo Lopez this past weekend. Following the fight, he was interviewed in the post-fight interview, and he didn't say anything was wrong with him. He made no excuses for losing. The only thing he said is he has to go back and he has to watch the fight. And then later on, I think like the following day, he then started to talk a little bit more, and he said he won the second half of the fight, and he said he thought that he won the fight. Once again, that was like a day after the fight or later on that same night of the fight. 4 days later, at least 4 days for me, where I'm at right now, he now is saying that he had a shoulder injury before the Teofimo Lopez fight, going into the fight. Now, guys, after I played that clip that I just played for you, I really didn't have to do any commentary. I could have just played that clip and just ended the video like that, because that clip tells you guys the whole story. It tells you the whole story. One of the reasons why I am doing commentary is because I thought it was important to note that this is Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather all over again, guys. Because after Manny Pacquiao lost to Floyd Mayweather, he said his shoulder was injured before the fight. Going into the fight, his shoulder was injured, right? So then what happened, which is kind of funny, boxing fans filed a lawsuit to sue Manny Pacquiao because he claimed he was injured before the fight. Basically, they were saying, we wouldn't have watched it if we knew he wasn't 100%, or we wouldn't have bet on Manny Pacquiao. We lost money betting on him because we thought he was 100%. So when Manny Pacquiao finds out he's being sued, you know what he does then? Then he changes his story and says, well, actually, I was injured during the fight around the third round. Then immediately after the fight, video footage of Manny Pacquiao going scuba diving surfaces. And then when he's asked what happened to your shoulder injury, Manny Pacquiao says the salt water healed the shoulder injury. No surgery, no nothing. Salt water healed it. Guys, I bullshit you not. This is exactly what Manny Pacquiao said word for word. And as if that wasn't enough, before the Floyd Mayweather fight, the Pacquiao versus Mayweather fight, I did an interview with Freddie Roach at the media workout. Let me go ahead and play this clip.
Will there be any excuses after May 2nd for either fighter, for Mayweather or for your fighter?
It shouldn't be. I mean, the best man will win, and we'll go from there.
So there it is. Manny Pacquiao's own trainer, he believed there shouldn't have been any excuses for Manny Pacquiao. But of course, Manny Pacquiao, he still had his own personal excuses, just like Lomachenko did. Let's get back to Lomachenko's excuse. So the report reads that Lomachenko went to go see his doctor after the fight. And his doctor You know, he examined him and told him, oh, it looks like you had a shoulder injury, right? And then Lomachenko's manager, Kilmas, he says that, or he claims that Lomachenko had told him that his shoulder was sore before the fight, like way before the fight. He told him that his shoulder was sore and they couldn't spar for a week, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, first of all, you have tons of fighters that have something happen to them. Maybe they caught a cold. Maybe they came down with a small case of the flu and they couldn't train for a whole week. I've heard a lot of stories like that before, where they got sick for maybe 6-7 days, right? Couldn't train, or maybe they had a minor injury where they couldn't spar for like a week. We hear these stories all the time, but none of this matters though, because the most important thing is what happened in the actual fight with Lomachenko. Lomachenko didn't throw any punches for the first 7 rounds, basically. And then out of nowhere, he started to let his hands go. He started to look like Lomachenko, right? He started to look like the exact same Lomachenko we've always seen. Now, keep in mind, according to Lomachenko's manager, Lomachenko, he underwent surgery this Monday on his right shoulder. Now, let me ask you a question. You go back and you watch the majority of the fight from the first round to the final bell, especially in the first half. What was the only punch that Lomachenko was throwing? The right jab. The only punch Lomachenko was throwing in the first 6 rounds was the right jab. Lomachenko, because that's how he sets up his combinations. If Loma can't land a jab, he's most likely not going to throw anything else. Now, depending on who the opponent is, unless you can just land lead lefts all night. But at least in this fight, this was exactly Lomachenko's pattern during the fight. Lomachenko would take a step back. Whenever Teo would try to attack, Loma would take a quick step back and he would try to counter him with the jab.
See, I'm starting to see the same sequence from Lomachenko. He steps in, steps out of range, and he tries to get a jab off. Fight less.
So if Lomachenko had a right shoulder injury, why would he be using the right shoulder more than he was using his left shoulder? Once again, I got to reiterate, the first 6 or 7 rounds, the only punch that Loma was throwing was the right jab. Do you guys remember that fight when John Pacquiao, he injured his shoulder? I think he dislocated it. And you could see the arm was just hanging. Like you can tell it was injured. He wasn't using it at all. He was only using one hand the whole fight and still end up winning the fight. You guys remember when Floyd Mayweather fought Carlos Hernandez? He injured his hand and Floyd Mayweather switched southpaw, started fighting with only one hand, and still completely dominated Carlos Hernandez with one hand. But the point is, he stopped using the injured hand because that's only common sense. That's what people do, right? But I understand why Lomachenko is making these excuses, because he was put under the same type of pressure that Manny Pacquiao was put under. But maybe Manny was put under more pressure because he was under the pressure of beating Floyd Mayweather, which obviously is not an easy task. Now, Lomachenko was under pressure because some people considered him pound for pound the best fighter in the world. This was really about Lomachenko versus Terrence Crawford as opposed to Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez. But it did have a lot to do with the fact that Lopez was this young, inexperienced, young champion, right? And he was able to dethrone, pound for pound, top 2, one of the best fighters in the world. So it's not going to be easy for Lomachenko to just say, well, you know what? Lopez was the better man. Let's go ahead and have a rematch and see what happens. His pride won't allow him to say something like that because it was too much of a devastating defeat. Do you guys ever notice in every other sport, when it comes to the NBA, NFL, baseball, when they lose, they proudly say, yeah, you know, they were the better team and et cetera, et cetera. They don't really make up too many excuses. because pride is not involved when it comes to those sports. And of course, it's a team sport. But in this situation, it's all you. You're all to blame, for better or worse. But I will say this as well. If you want to be considered great, you're not going to be considered great for a fight that you lost because you had a great excuse. Meaning, let's say, even if it were true, even if it were completely true, even if Lomachenko really did injure his shoulder and he lost, it's still a loss. You guys remember when Vitaly Klitschko, when he lost because he injured his shoulder when he fought against Chris Bird. It doesn't change the fact that Vitaly Klitschko, he lost his title to Chris Bird. But Lomachenko would have to do what Vitaly Klitschko was able to do, which is come back in a rematch. If Lomachenko can get a rematch, I'm gonna talk about that in a second. But he would have to come back and do what Klitschko did. Klitschko came back and he destroyed Chris Bird in the rematch, really proving the first fight was from an injury. So what Lomachenko is gonna have to do, if Teo is not willing to give him a rematch right away, Loma's gonna have to earn it. Remember guys, that was the arrogance of Lomachenko. That was the confidence of Lomachenko not implementing a rematch clause, which would have guaranteed him a rematch. But Loma was so confident he was gonna beat Teofimo Lopez that he felt he did not need the clause. So now you know what he's gonna have to do to get a rematch? He's gonna have to go through some lions and sharks to get that rematch. That means he's gonna have to go after some of the other undefeated champions. He's gonna have to keep his name relevant because fighting tomato cans is not gonna get him that rematch. If Loma really wants that rematch, what he really should do is, now Teo is talking about fighting Devin Haney because Devin Haney reached out to Teo after that fight, because Teo was dissing Devin, and with Devin being the man that he is, he contacted Teo right away, like, let's make the fight happen next. He's trying to pressure Teo to take the fight. But it's interesting because Teo was saying in the post-fight press conference, he doesn't think that fighters are gonna step up and fight him, meaning he thinks that fighters are gonna avoid him. So that means the fight should happen. It sounds like both fighters are willing to take the fight, but let's just say Teo doesn't take the fight. If Teo doesn't take the fight, then Loma should go after Devin Haney. If Loma were to go after Devin Haney and beat Devin Haney, then he would definitely earn that rematch with Teofimo. But there's a lot of fighters that Loma can go after. It doesn't have to just be Devin Haney. But since Devin Haney is calling everyone out, it would make sense for him to go after him. I mean, he can go after Ryan Garcia. I mean, Shakur Stevenson also called out Lomachenko. But it has to be a big win for Lomachenko. Just like when Lomachenko, he lost to Salido. He bounced right back and fought against Gary Russell and beat Gary Russell. He has to do the same thing today. But it's not going to be as easy because he's fighting at a higher weight class. And almost everyone in this weight class is very athletic. But when it comes to Lomachenko moving up in weight, he actually fought in the amateurs at 132. So it's not that much of a big jump for him to now be fighting at 135. He just got used to fighting smaller guys, which is always going to be easier. So Lomachenko is going to have to ride down a dangerous road to earn that shot, to earn that rematch against Teofimo Lopez. Let's see if he's willing to do it. And one more point before I end this video. For anyone that's trying to desperately defend this excuse that Lomachenko made by saying something like, oh, well, Loma, he had to say that he has no injuries and he's healthy because he's promoting the fight, etc., etc. Let me tell you this. No one is going to go out of their way and say, guys, before I was never 100% because I had all of these injuries, but now this fight is going to be different. You're going to see my best performance because now I'm 100%. Now I'm completely healthy with no injuries. No one is going to say that just to promote a fight when all that's going to do is contradict what you said before and make you look like a complete liar. It's funny because in my last video, when I was talking about Devin Haney and Teo fighting next, some decaf, he said, yeah, when Teofimo beats Devin Haney. I can't wait to see what excuses they're gonna use now. Remember guys, these are the same fans that made excuses for Canelo losing to Floyd Mayweather. These are the same fans that made excuses for Sergey Kovalev losing to Ward. Made excuses for Manny Pacquiao losing to Floyd Mayweather. Made excuses for Tim Bradley knocking out Brandon Rios, or I should say made excuses for Brandon Rios losing to Tim Bradley. Made excuses for Juan Manuel Marquez losing to Tim Bradley. And trust me, I can go on, I'm just naming a few. So what I want that guy to do, and other people who say that kind of ridiculous stuff, saying what excuses are they gonna come up with when Teo beats Devin Haney, I want you to use that same energy when it comes to the excuses that Lomachenko is using right now. That's all I got for now, and I'm on to the next one.
You know, I always say on this channel, pay-per-view fights should actually be free. And now the day has come where I'm about to hook you up with an app where you can watch all your pay-per-view events, boxing, UFC, etc. for free. I want to introduce Block TV, the best internet streaming television app out there. They provide over 3,600 channels, including HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, and Starz. They have a massive video on demand library with over 40,000 of the new release movies and the latest TV series. And it also includes DVR. So you're getting all of this for $34.99 a month. And once again, that includes free pay-per-view. So this one right here is a no-brainer, guys, because back in Las Vegas, I was paying damn near $200 a month for my cable. Those days are long gone now. So to get the app, make sure you guys go over to getblocktv.com and put in my promo code and get 30% off your first month. You also get a free month for every friend you refer. The promo code is DBNation.